Good morning. I want to take you to a text that if we were to pull it just out and put it on a plaque, we might misunderstand it. And it's a unique thing that we learn in the Bible to be thankful for. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 15 reads, it's a short verse, "Thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift." Well, what is his inexpressible gift? If we didn't have context, I think we naturally would assume that it's the gospel, it's salvation. And that's not a bad assumption. I mean, what we're going to talk about is connected deeply to gospel and in a way is an outworking of the gospel. But if I go back in chapter 8 and 9, I learn that Paul's writing to the Corinthians and he is telling them that he wants them to be invested in a collection that he is gathering, a collection of funds that he's gathering to take back to Jerusalem, the mother church, and to take back with him as to help support the poor and the widows and things like that back at the mother church. So in chapter 8, he uses the Macedonians as an example of benevolent giving and says, I wish you guys would be like the Macedonians. And in chapter 9, he continues, but kind of burrows down on the joy of giving, the joy of a generous heart. I want to pick up in verse 12 and just give you the context. Verse 12 reads this way, "For the ministry of this service, this giving, is not only supplying the needs of the saints, but is also overflowing in many thanksgivings to God." He's saying, look, this offering we're putting together, it's really allowing for people to be very thankful to what God is supplying, or for what God is supplying. "By their approval of this service, they will glorify God because of your submission that comes from your confession of the gospel of Christ and the generosity of your contribution for them and for all others. While they long for you and pray for you because of the surpassing grace of God upon you, thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift." So the inexpressible gift, right? Gift, charis, has the idea of charisma. It's connected to the word grace. So you go back, in that previous verse, verse 14, is connected to this surpassing grace that is upon you. Well, that surpassing grace is connected to a couple of things in the verse before, in verse 13, which is this submission that comes from your confession of the gospel and the generosity of your contribution. So what you're seeing here is that Paul, when he says, thank God for his inexpressible gift, is thankful in there's kind of a coin with two sides here. One is the gospel and its work in the lives of people, but specifically how that gospel has made people generous and how that generosity is now being used to allow for ministry to move forward. So when Paul says he's thankful for the inexpressible gift, keep this in mind. You and I ought to have a sense of thanksgiving when we see God at work in someone's life who then, out of that work, they are caring for another person. They're helping another person. They're being generous towards other people. So like for me, pastorally, I'm thankful when I see people in our church ministering to other people. That draws me to a place of gratitude and thanksgiving that God would so move in one person's life that then they would care for others. And it makes me go, man, I want to be generous like that. So it has an inspiration to it, but it also is a cause for thanksgiving. So look out for generous people and be thankful that God's grace is at work in your generous brother or sister. And see, what you want is some of that generosity, that characteristic of generosity to seep into you. So be thankful for the work of God in another who stirs them to care for someone, to be generous to somebody, because that's a great thing that God is doing to move his kingdom forward. May the Lord bless you today.